The dawn of chaos. The deafening sound of alarms echoed through the underground facilities as Lieutenant Lydia Calderon frantically analyzed the data projected on the enormous holographic screen before her. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The sensors didn't lie. The sun was moving closer, and with it, a storm of solar particles capable of turning the planet into a radiation-soaked hellscape. But how? What could provoke such an unimaginable catastrophe? What if the sun, the symbol of life, became the herald of extinction? This question burned in Lydia's mind as she observed the increasingly apocalyptic readings. She realized the answer lay buried somewhere, an unsettling mix of negligence, military secrets, and an astrophysical phenomenon never before recorded. Worse, she felt she wasn't the only one aware of this. Her superiors, usually skeptical, were too silent, as though something darker was at play. The sun wasn't the only enemy. Silence was just as lethal. It was 3:17 a.m. In the operations room of Base Delta, Lydia tried to understand the origins of the disaster that loomed. From data received via orbital satellites, she calculated that, in less than 48 hours, Earth would be hit by a deadly wave of radiation. However, when she brought this information to Colonel Halstead, his reaction was unexpected. "Forget this, Lieutenant. Make the report disappear," Halstead ordered before leaving the room. Lydia froze. She understood the weight of the Colonel's words. Someone had known about this before her. She had stumbled upon something meant to remain buried. But why? And more importantly, how could she save millions of lives when no one was willing to act? The dilemma consumed her for a moment. The lives of innocent people or her own safety? The answer didn't take long. She would have to act alone. Determined, Lydia copied the critical data onto an external device and returned home. Between frantic calls to her family and searches for underground shelters, her plan began to take shape. Find refuge far from the surface, far from the light. When she thought she could finally catch her breath, a heavy knock at the door interrupted her concentration. "Open up! This is the army!" shouted a male voice. She knew they had come for her. On the other side of the planet, in the heart of a decommissioned maritime power plant, Enrico Valente, a reclusive nautical engineer, awoke from a restless sleep. In the middle of the night, an unexpected call roused him. His sister, Clara, an oceanographer he hadn't spoken to in years, needed his help. Disoriented and hesitant, Enrico answered the plea, unaware that he was about to embark on a journey where the fate of the world would depend on his decisions. As Clara explained a secret mission that required his expertise in deep-diving submarines, Enrico noticed her explanations were fragmented and vague. Why explore the oceans now, amid rumors of solar anomalies? And why was Clara so nervous? He reluctantly agreed, but something inside him told him this wasn't just another technical job. The next morning, two stories, so distant, silently began to converge. Under the threat of a treacherous sun, Lydia and Enrico faced the first choices in a battle where light, hope, and even time were cruel enemies. How do you face imminent destruction when you can't even trust the daylight? The invisible storm, the sun's betrayal. The sun rose on the horizon, but instead of bringing comforting warmth, it felt like a predator stalking its prey. The streets were deserted, and the morning breeze was heavy, as if even the air was aware of what was coming. As Lydia darted through the alleys of her hometown, adrenaline coursed through her veins. Soldiers had stormed her home minutes earlier, forcing her to flee with only the data device and the clothes on her back. Why wasn't anyone reacting? Why wasn't the government sounding a global alarm? The questions echoed in her mind, but she knew the answers didn't matter anymore. Time was running out. Survival was the priority. She remembered an old underground shelter in the nearby mountains used during military drills, but when she tried to access the site, she found it locked and guarded by soldiers. Her only chance was to seek another route, one potentially more dangerous, but offering a better chance of safety. The sea. The call of the depths. Enrico and Clara sailed on a small boat toward an abandoned offshore platform where the experimental submarine Erebus awaited. Clara explained the plan in fragments, but Enrico noted the desperation in her voice. There was more at stake than she was willing to admit. "This isn't just about research, is it?" he finally questioned, noticing his sister's tense expression. Clara hesitated but finally relented. "The sun, It's changing. A massive solar flare is about to hit Earth. Our only chance to survive is to hide in the depths of the ocean. The revelation hit Enrico like a punch. He tried to process her words as he stared at the endless blue around them. He had always believed the ocean was the most hostile place on the planet, but now it seemed to be the only salvation. Intersecting paths. As Lydia continued her journey, she encountered a small group of people seeking shelter. Among them was an old friend, Samuel, who worked as a technician at a nearby maritime power plant. He mentioned a secret project involving submarines and a possible evacuation operation into the depths. Lydia didn't hesitate. She convinced the group to follow her to the coast, where Samuel believed they could access the submarine. The idea was risky, but it was better than waiting for death on the surface. Descent into the unknown hours. Later at the offshore platform, Enrico inspected the Erebus. The structure seemed robust but aged, like a forgotten relic of a military past. Clara outlined the mission's goals: descend to an unprecedented depth to escape solar radiation. Additionally, they were to collect ocean sediment samples to investigate the feasibility of prolonged life underwater. "Are we ready for this?" Enrico asked, skeptical. Before Clara could respond, a distress signal interrupted the conversation. It was a plea for help from the coast. "It seems someone needs assistance." Clara hesitated, but Enrico insisted. They adjusted course to investigate. Upon arrival, they found Lydia and her group. Enrico felt something was off about this unexpected meeting, but he couldn't ignore the lives depending on them. A fragile alliance. With Lydia aboard, secrets began to pile up. The device she carried contained information that could change everything, but she didn't yet trust Clara and Enrico enough to reveal it. On the other hand, Clara realized that Lydia's presence could complicate the mission, but she had no choice but to accept her. As the Erebus dove into the dark waters, tensions among the crew grew, but one thing was certain. Above them, the sun showed no mercy. The unavoidable question: would the sun evaporate the oceans? Would the rising temperatures kill them all anyway? These questions, like shadows, loomed over everyone. But before they could search for answers, they needed to face something even more urgent: survival. The Earth's wrath, the hidden threat. The pressure in the depths was almost as overwhelming as the tension inside the Erebus. While Enrico skillfully piloted the submarine to escape the military drones, Clara monitored the sensors. Something strange was happening. Waves of heat were radiating not only from the solar generators, but also from a deeper region of the ocean. "This can't just be radiation," Clara murmured, adjusting the instruments. Suddenly, the sensors picked up massive movement. Enrico barely had time to react before a violent tremor shook the submarine. Everyone was thrown around as lights flickered and alarms blared. "What was that?" shouted Lydia, trying to steady herself. Outside, amidst the shadows of the abyss, an enormous shape emerged. It was a monstrous creature, larger than anything the group could imagine. Dark, glistening scales reflected the light from the generators, and its eyes, like molten fire, burned with ancient fury. "It's impossible," Clara whispered. "This shouldn't exist." The Leviathan, a mythical creature long thought to be mere legend, had awakened. The rising temperatures and imbalance in the oceanic ecosystem had brought it to life. Its roar reverberated through the water, a vibration so intense it made the crew's ears ring and the submarine tremble. The abyss strikes back. As the Erebus attempted to flee, the military drones continued their relentless pursuit. But the Leviathan, seemingly disturbed by the pulses emitted by the generators, turned its attention to the drones. With a swift motion, it destroyed two of them with its massive tail. On the other end of the military transmission, Colonel Halstead watched the monitors in disbelief. He had no idea such a creature existed. "What the hell is that?" he bellowed as his soldiers scrambled in vain to contain the beast. The Leviathan surged forward, destroying the drones like they were toys. It then focused its fury on the solar generators themselves. With a powerful bite, it crushed one of the devices, triggering a massive explosion that sent seismic waves rippling through the ocean. Enrico seized the opportunity. "This is our moment! Let's get out of here now!" A temporary refuge. Using the chaos created by the creature, Enrico piloted the Erebus out of the danger zone. The external cameras showed the devastation. the Leviathan continued its rampage, obliterating military installations and forcing the few remaining drones to retreat. Despite the threat it posed, the creature had become, for a moment, an unintentional ally. After hours of tension, the submarine surfaced in an isolated area near a chain of undersea mountains. It was a calm spot, protected by cliffs and out of the immediate reach of the military. "We made it. For now," Enrico said, exhausted, as Clara checked the submarine for damage. But Lydia knew the danger wasn't over yet. "This was luck, but how long can we hide?" Clara pointed to the sensors. "Here, the water temperature is more stable. It's a temporary refuge, but we need to plan our next move." Lessons from the Leviathan. While reviewing the recorded footage, a thought began to form in Lydia's mind. The Leviathan wasn't just a threat. It was living proof of the consequences of humanity's interference in the ecosystem. Clara also noticed something significant. It attacked the generators. Maybe instinctively it understands that they're the source of the imbalance. Enrico crossed his arms. "So we're talking about a monster that, in some way, can help us if we can stay out of its way." The truth unveiled. As the group debated their next steps, Lydia shared what she had discovered on the device. These generators weren't just solar experiments. They were activated as an attempt to draw energy directly from the solar corona. Something went wrong and the sun started reacting unpredictably. Clara was stunned. "So all of this, it's their fault?" "Yes, and they know it," Lydia replied. "That's why the military is so desperate to silence us. They want to hide their responsibility, even if it means sacrificing what's left of humanity." A moment of calm. Despite the gravity of the situation, the group used the time in the refuge to repair the submarine and reassess their options. Clara analyzed sediment samples collected during the journey, searching for evidence of habitable zones on the ocean floor. Enrico adjusted the systems to improve energy efficiency, while Lydia worked to decode the remaining secrets stored in the device. For now, the Leviathan continued to roam unseen in the depths. But the question lingered: was it the only one? The next step. With the submarine repaired and the group more united, they made a decision. They needed to reach a strategic point where they could expose the truth to the world. However, they knew the path ahead would be perilous. The Leviathan and the military were still out there, lurking. Before departing, Lydia gazed into the vast, dark ocean. The sun isn't our only enemy. What we've created in the depths might be even worse. Nature's fury. The beasts awaken. The tension aboard the Erebus was suffocating as it navigated the pitch-black depths. The crew had narrowly escaped the Leviathan and the military drones. As they regrouped in their temporary refuge, Lydia intercepted a weak satellite signal. It was garbled, but its message froze everyone in place. "They're waking up. The Titans are destroying everything." The faint transmission was accompanied by grainy footage. Gigantic creatures were rampaging across the world, tearing apart tanks, reducing fighter jets to debris, and demolishing entire cities. These beasts, each more fearsome than the last, seemed to emerge from nowhere. It was as if Earth itself had conjured them. "This can't be real," Clara muttered, unable to tear her eyes away from the screen. Enrico, equally stunned, managed to piece together a grim realization. The Earth isn't just reacting, it's retaliating. The Earth's final defense. The footage revealed creatures of immense size and variety, serpent-like monsters the length of mountains, winged beasts that blacked out the sky, and leviathans rising from the ocean depths to destroy naval fleets. What united them was their unrelenting assault on human technology, particularly the solar generators. The Erebus crew observed with growing awe as the creatures methodically dismantled the military's weapons. Tanks crumpled under colossal feet, and fortified bases were reduced to rubble. It was clear these monsters were not mere animals. They were the Earth's last line of defense against humanity's reckless exploitation. As the creatures destroyed the generators, the effects were immediate. The rising global temperatures began to stabilize, and the intense solar activity started to diminish. The sun's deadly wrath was finally retreating. Survivors in the shadows. Despite the monster's intervention, the toll on humanity was catastrophic. Billions had perished, and cities were unrecognizable wastelands. However, scattered groups of survivors emerged from caves and bunkers. These remnants of humanity, stripped of their advanced technology, began to adapt to a simpler existence. As the satellite feed continued, it revealed the beasts retreating after their task was complete. Some disappeared into deep ocean trenches, others into dormant volcanoes, and still others into vast underground caverns. They left no trace but destruction and the eerie knowledge that they were watching, ready to awaken again if necessary. The journey to the surface. With the sun's heat receding and conditions stabilizing, the Erebus crew decided it was time to surface. Guided by satellite data, they navigated toward a coastline where survivors had been sighted. The journey was long and silent, broken only by the faint hum of the submarine's systems and the echo of past transmissions. When the submarine finally broke through to the surface, the sight that greeted them was both breathtaking and devastating. The world they had known was gone. Skyscrapers were now skeletal remains, wrapped in sprawling vines. Streets were overrun with vegetation, and strange, resilient animals roamed freely. Nature had reclaimed the earth. Nature's warning. Standing on the shore, Clara observed the overgrown ruins. "We were invaders here," she said softly. "The earth reminded us of that." Lydia, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon, added, "The question is, can we coexist with what remains? Or will we face this reckoning again?" A world renewed. As they explored the transformed land, they discovered a small community of survivors. These people, armed with rudimentary tools and newfound resilience, were beginning to rebuild. The advanced technologies that had once defined humanity were gone, fried by the solar storms. Yet, in this simplicity, there was hope. The Erebus crew offered their knowledge and skills to help. Clara cataloged the resurgent ecosystems, identifying plants and animals that could sustain life. Enrico began reconstructing basic tools to aid survival. Meanwhile, Lydia carried with her the device containing the grim history of their ordeal, a reminder of humanity's mistakes and the price they had paid. As they stood beneath a clear, star-filled sky, Enrico finally allowed himself a small smile. "The sun is back where it belongs. Now it's up to us to find our place." Lydia nodded solemnly. The Earth had shown it was far stronger than humanity had ever imagined. And now, it was humanity's turn to prove it had learned its lesson. The final reckoning. The group's journey ended on a somber but hopeful note. The Earth had been scarred, but it was healing. The titanic creatures, once thought to exist only in myths, had retreated to their colossal nests in volcanoes, trenches, and other unreachable places. They were the guardians of the planet, ready to rise again if humanity failed to respect its fragile balance. As the survivors began to rebuild, the Erebus crew made a vow. They would help rebuild a better world, one that worked with the Earth rather than against it. They had been given a second chance, but the cost was clear. Standing on the cliffside, Lydia spoke the final words of their journey. "The Earth will always defend itself. We either learn from this, or we disappear."